to begin.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Quick thing, Dre, I can't hear myself. Is that normal?
No. Did you unplug yourself?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I unplugged myself. All right, I'm gonna plug myself back into the matrix here. Give me a second, people. Okay, there we go. My voice is coming. So, anyways, we'll pretend that didn't happen. Yeah, sorry guys for the awkwardness. It's gonna get awkward every now and then, so we just laugh it off. But today in the studio, I have Lily Gonzalez and Maria Martinez. Thank you both for coming out today. I know you just drove out from, like you said, the Valley, Cal State Northridge.
Cal State Northridge.
Yes, thank you for having
Thank
us. We are just coming back. We just came back from campus. We were in the office today. Yes. coming
Office,
back.
classes. Yep.
Yeah, you guys are already just about done with the day, huh?
Yep. Yep. When Lily told me, I was like, hey, I thought this was scheduled for the morning. And she's like, no, tonight. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's funny because she mentioned, and I was like, wait, it's 9 in the night. Is that still cool? And I was like, oh, fuck, hopefully that you guys are still, like, cool with it and stuff. But, yeah, thank you guys again for coming out. Just to give us a little bit of background about what you guys do. I believe you guys are both part of Revolutionary Scholars. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Cool. And can you guys give us a little bit of background about what that is and how it came about?
So again, thank you for having
Yeah,
us. My name's
course.
Lily. So Revolutionary Scholars started. So first and foremost, I identify as formerly incarcerated. When I came home, I went through Homeboy Industries,
Mhm.
right? And at that point, higher education was definitely not on my radar. Survival was, and what that looked like for me definitely was not a bachelor's degree or graduate school. That's not something that I envisioned or imagined for myself at that time. But eventually, through a Pathways to College workshop that I attended, I was encouraged to reapply and go continue my education at CSUN. So I went ahead and did. And once I got there, well, initially, like, that wasn't really even my plan.
Yeah.
Once I got accepted, I was actually working at Homeboy, and I was moved to work in the cafe, and I was in the back doing prep work, right? Like for salads, and I was chopping chiles, and my shift was like 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I was like, and I had gotten my acceptance, and I was like, fuck these chilies. I'm taking my ass to fucking CSUN.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And while there, I learned about different other people, right, that shared my experience and that were also in higher education. And once I saw that, like, it was just completely different for me. And once on campus, I started to navigate like different challenges in terms of even like technology, and then having like such a huge gap. So then I learned about this program called Project Rebound, and I learned about underground scholars. And so Project Rebound was started over 50 years ago at San Francisco State University. And the purpose of the program, or the main mission, was to matriculate people that were currently incarcerated in the prisons, right, into San Francisco State University. And then so once I came to CSUN during that point, like in about 2015, there was an opportunity to expand Project Rebound to other CSU campuses. And at that point, CSUN was like, we don't have infrastructure, we're not ready. So we started a student organization in response to that. And this was something that was happening, on different campuses throughout the state. And we formed Revolutionary Scholars, which was a student organization started by myself and Johnny, which is another formerly incarcerated student on campus. And it was to create a space and support system for those coming home and wishing to pursue higher education. So that's kind of like how it started, but it's definitely modeled after Project Rebound and Underground Scholars. And this is definitely something that's happening like on a statewide level. Currently, we've been able to also, through this work, right, organize different CSUs statewide, and Project Rebound became a line item in the California state budget. So what this means now is that this program will now be available at all 23 CSUs. So
Damn. So
yeah.
how long? I'm sorry. What year did you say the Revolutionary Scholars?
So we became
Became?
like an official student organization in 2016.
Okay.
Yes.
And now you said, for the most part, the people who are part of the collective or the group are people who were formerly incarcerated.
It's people that are formerly incarcerated or have been impacted by the incarceration of a loved one. So if like your family member, your parents, or your loved one has experienced incarceration as well, or people wishing to dismantle like these systems of oppression, right? Understanding that like this is also a systematic issue.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Now, for the people who go into these, okay, so for example, like somebody who was formerly incarcerated, for them to go into the education system or like a college, without those programs, they'll find it a lot more difficult to become part of those institutions.
Well, it's just like navigating higher education, right? And like Maria, you can probably speak to this more like your experience.
Okay, so when I was in community college,
Mhm.
I kept to myself.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to explain the 6 years I was gone. I didn't know how to explain. I didn't know what Vine was.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't know what
Yeah.
like YouTube was like just popping when I got when I went into prison, and like Adventure Time was still like I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, when I started like higher education, yeah, I got my associate's degree when I was in prison, but I didn't have like any guidance.
Mhm.
So I just got like general studies. I didn't know what to do with that, and I didn't know that was gonna affect me when I got out of prison to actually pursue.
Mhm.
I didn't get any financial aid because of that, because I had an associate's
Right.
degree. I had to like by myself. There wasn't like I didn't know there was Project Rebound. I didn't know there was Revolutionary Scholars. I didn't know there was Underground Scholars. I didn't have like the only guidance I had was my little sister who graduated from Long Beach, and she was like, "Hey, go pursue like computer science."
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm not smart enough for computer science. I'm just gonna go cut some hair, you know, like I had to like
Yeah.
be a hairstylist. And yeah, so like going to the counselor's office trying to get, you know, my educational plan, like, you know, oh well, she's like, what happened to the 6 year gap? And I was like, oh well, I was in prison, and then
Mhm.
getting looked at like I was nothing, like I was like, what the fuck, you know,
Yeah.
like, and then it just made me feel bad. So I was like, nah, fuck this. So when I was transferring, I applied to Cal State LA, CSUN, Dominguez Hills, and my little sister was going to Cal State LA at the time, and they sent this like email to all the students saying like, "Hey, Project Rebound needs volunteers to help formerly incarcerated students apply to college."
Mhm.
And I was like, "What is this?" Right? I was like, "There's people out there like me." So then I look and see if CSUN has something, because CSUN offered me some scholarship, and I was like, okay. So I started looking at the end, you know, and I find
Yeah.
Lily, and I was like, I know this girl.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my old cellmate. What the?
Like I did
Damn,
time
that
with
was
her.
small
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what the hell? And so I like, you know, I stalked her. I already by this time I was like, tech savvy and
Yeah.
shit. And then yeah, I hit her up, and she's like, "Oh my god!" And then she took me for like a little tour at the campus, and then I was like, "Okay, this is where I'm going," because like everyone was so welcoming. Like, even though the people that like aren't formerly incarcerated or system impacted, they were all like, I felt like I can open up and not be ashamed of my background,
Mhm.
because yeah, I did stupid shit when I was younger.
Yeah.
But that's not me. Like, I'm trying to better myself, trying to actually, you know, give back to communities, like. And yeah, so like this program really helps. It helped me a lot.
Damn. And,
I-
oh yeah, go for it. Go for it.
And I wish like they really had something like this when my sisters were going to school, because they didn't have any guidance on how to. They're like, oh, my sister needs this. Like, how do I
Mhm.
go about that? And I've like helped actual like individuals like contact their parents that they couldn't find them in the system.
That are incarcerated.
Hmm.
Damn. I mean, I know for the most part, people who are convicted, or I don't know if to the extent of just being incarcerated, but you know, once coming out, like they have trouble getting any sort of government assistance. You know, like
Yeah.
welfare scholarships or
Yeah,
anything like that.
there's actually over 48,000 collateral consequences for somebody that has a felony conviction that expand to housing, food access, and then we even know that like there was a study done by the ACLU in San Diego that looking at San Diego County's like SNAP program and how like it disproportionately like targeted formerly incarcerated like Black women.
Yeah.
So even in accessing like food, right? Like you're there, you have this like home investigation. So you have that, and then like trying to access housing, trying to access employment. Like we can ban the box on the employment applications, yes, but we're not changing hiring culture. Like what does that look like in our everyday work, right? Like it's not being, it doesn't translate, and that's goes to like different things too. Even when we talk about incarceration, the discussion of the incarceration rates of women are very marginal to that conversation. When we look at over in like the last 40 years, the rate of incarceration for women has risen by 834%. But we don't talk about that, you know, in relationship to like the larger, you know, to incarceration, much less that like 70% of the women that are incarcerated are predominantly in county jails and have not been convicted of a crime, and 80% of those women are mothers and are just awaiting to go to trial, or you know, they're like in limbo. So
And they can be in limbo for as long
right,
as
and
system
meanwhile, yeah,
takes.
and then it's like if you have, you know, if you're unable to access bail, then you know you're in there longer and you're separated from your family. And then not only that, but like sometimes you're pushed into taking like these really shitty deals because you want to come home because of what the situation looks like at home, you know. So and that's definitely like when we talk about these issues, something that's not discussed enough.
And now the transition from being incarcerated into, you know, social, civilian, citizen life, how is that? I mean, I will assume it's a little, it takes getting accustomed to it, right? You know, because like you mentioned, you were in and you missed out like Vine, and like, it's like a culture, in a sense, a culture shock. You go in there and you're like, oh man, like this kind of just changed, you know? So like, I know I mean, I don't know, but from what I've read is that the fact that when people, you know, they go outside and they see these changes, and they make it difficult for them to get any sort of help, their chances of going back to prison are higher than, you know, just higher.
It's higher. Yeah, because I'm fortunate enough to like have my family who supported me through the whole thing, and my sisters, you know, finding out like, oh yeah, you can get a job in computer science as long as you know what you're doing. They don't care about your background. And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that. The women I met, they didn't, like majority of them didn't have that, you know. So it sucks, and that's why, you know, programs like this, like I want to be like, hey, I can help you, you know. Like let me go through it, and then I'll show you what I went through, and so you don't have to go through the little obstacles I went through.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, you know, people hear, oh, like, oh, that person was in jail, and they immediately like, oh, that's a bad person, like,
oh yeah,
you know, like stay away from them, you know. But the whole point is to, you know, you're in there to kind of like get reformed and become a productive member of society, again, air quotes, but they're still seeing you as this person who holds this whole like weight under past.
My first job, so I got a call back at McDonald's, and when I told my dad,
you got a call back at McDonald's.
I sure did.
Wow.
And then my dad was like, "Oh no, you're not working at McDonald's." So he hooked it up with the job at his place, and I was working in the office. And when I met my supervisor, she was like, "Oh, you're not what I expected." And I was like, "So what did you expect?" She was like, "You know, like a gangster girl with tattoos and stuff." And I was like, oh, okay.
I went to Homeboy Industries and got them removed, bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
No. She turned out to be such a lovely lady.
I'm just kidding.
Such a lovely, yeah. But like, you know, that they'll just see what is on paper, and like, I just learned like I was supposed to go with Lily to Pelican Bay, but I didn't get approved because I have 2 charges that I wasn't convicted for. And they didn't approve me to go because of those 2 charges.
And this goes back to say like the collateral consequences, right? So like when you are arrested and like you're charged with something, like even though you weren't convicted of that, you know, it's still going to come up. So she was denied access, you know, to go into this facility to talk about like the programming that we do. And, you know, we correspond with folks that are inside that want to come to CSUN and like do this work. But it's like, you know, you're saying yes, you, but not you over something that you weren't even convicted of. And we also know how like, even then, like, we are overcharged in terms of, like, when we are arrested, they
try to pin anything. I have this dragon tattoo, and my co-defendant was Chinese.
Yeah.
And he said some crazy thing that he owed Chinese, like, this Chinese gang money.
Yeah.
So they fucking
The triads.
yeah,
the
they're
triads or something.
it was watching, and then they're like,
Okay.
the bigger the dragon, the bigger the status. And I was like, whoa, my last name is Martinez. I'm like, Judge Martinez. I would join La
my God.
M first.
Yeah.
Before
First of all, you
anything.
can't use a woman. I don't
It's
think.
like,
I'm just
come on.
kidding.
I was like,
Oh my God, that's
yeah,
hilarious.
so that charge that I didn't get convicted for is what held me back, or one of them. But like that's messed up. I was like, I didn't like. Now I'm part of it. Am I part of the data system? Now I have to look into if I'm gang affiliated. I don't even know. I don't even know.
So at this point, both of you guys, how long has it been since you guys been out? Since, and then yeah, so how long for beginners? How long has that been since you guys, gotten out from there and kind of moved on to Revolutionary Scholars and trying to educate other people, students and people outside of that about that whole process and how you could become a member of society again.
It's gonna be 4 years in March.
Yeah.
St. Patrick's Day.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I was released in 2011, but even after my release and even after people are released, like you are still being monitored either through parole or probation. So like the monitoring and surveillance doesn't in there, it gets extended. And because of that, like, yeah. And because of that, like that also locks you out of like a lot of other things too, right? It looks differently. And also like, just because we do work predominantly with folks in higher education and ensuring that if folks want to pursue that route, that they have that support, but also understanding that that's not what success looks like for everybody. And, also like not exceptionalizing folks and not saying like this is the one all save all and because folks need to be redeemed, because that's not true. We are not defined by like the worst or anything like that. So just to kind of like put that out there, that's not definitely like the work that we're doing. Success is measured like however that person wants to identify it as. And however, should they choose this route, there shouldn't, how can we eliminate those roadblocks? And for somebody that's incarcerated, that looks like if you are making 18 cents an hour and you can't purchase transcripts, official transcripts to get into this university, like that should not be a barrier for you to be able to attend. Like, how do we look at that in a bigger picture? And like, what can community colleges do to like, look at policies that they can do to like remove the barriers for folks to have like equitable access into higher education.
And is there anything that that you guys will at least know of programs or anything that are trying to change the system, like the actual prison system, like in regards to how the procedures and the regulations and how they base everybody's?
Yeah, like in everyone's community, there's usually people doing work around issues of incarceration. The Youth Justice Coalition does work around that. Definitely like plug yourself in. There's other organizations like nationally that do that work, but looking at policy and stuff like that. And
It's like, nah, she's the brains in all this. Like,
no, like,
just here
like
for
button. Like I'm just talking, rambling.
Yeah. No worries. I mean, and for the most part, I mean, for those people who don't know, the United States is one of the countries that has like the highest imprisonment rate in the whole world.
Yes.
yeah, that's why we're the biggest crowd when we go to like. There's usually a conference that we go to every year at Columbia University, and California rolls deep. Because
we're the golden gulag.
Yeah.
We're the biggest freaking incarcerators.
Yeah.
So like, oh, y'all have the most people like in
Yeah,
your programs, but also we have like the most freaking people in prison.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
yeah.
That's great. I mean, and I'm assuming for the most part, the people you come across with are majority from Hispanic or Latin or Latino backgrounds and African American, or is that like? Because I know usually those are like the highest rates.
Right. It's mostly like Black and like Latino communities that are over criminalized, right? And in LA County, like we know it's like the biggest jail system like in the freaking world. And in LA County specifically, like if you look at those numbers, like I looked at them this morning, like Latinas are overrepresented in the LA County jails. But like if you look at the national numbers, the women that are disproportionate, like overrepresented are like Black and American, Native American, Indigenous women that are in the prison system. Yeah, and folks can like look this stuff up. I don't have like a reference list in front of me, so if my numbers are wrong, don't come after me.
Yeah.
The last time I looked into the county jail, I looked up Maria Martinez. There was 50 of us.
So back to her name.
Yeah.
So You know, I came home before she did. So, and we were both in solitary confinement. She was in,
Damn.
yeah, that's the other thing too, right? We were both in solitary confinement fighting our cases prior to being like, you're still in limbo. And then that added like layer that adds, right? And freaking anxiety, like,
Fuck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So like, solitary confinement. That means what? I mean,
so you're in
You're
your cell
by
23
yourself.
hours a day by
Yeah.
yourself. You and you know, you're in county, like you don't have like a TV, you don't have you don't have anything in there. Books, and if you're fortunate to have access to books, and even the books you have access to are like super crappy, like Nora Roberts, like I don't want to read
Nora
Yeah.
Roberts. Oh,
James
No.
Patterson.
God.
No. I was like, you remember? My sister sent me the whole. I told her like, what do you want to read? And I was like, all the Harry Potter books.
Damn,
That's
you
when
know,
I
it's
saw
funny.
when I saw Aaron Hernandez documentary. He said the exact same thing.
We were
and I-
texting each other
It's like,
Texting each other. Hey, Goblet of Fire.
because she had the freaking Harry Potter collection in county,
Yeah.
and so she
Damn.
was the plug.
yeah,
Hey, but borrow the books.
yeah,
it's
that's
so
how it went
crazy.
down.
Why not Goosebumps?
Goosebumps.
No. That's hella old school.
90s.
The one that you're
Babysitter
just
school.
changing, like, let me change the ending. Let's go to this page. I remember those.
Damn. And I mean, for the most part, like, so you get again, it's solitary confinement. I mean, isn't that like technically kind of illegal?
It is actually the United Nations after
Yeah.
declared that after 15 days in solitary confinement, 15 days in solitary confinement is actually considered torture and like inhumane, and has like severe impacts on the brain. So
Yeah,
that is true.
I would imagine. Fuck.
I'm messed up.
That's why we have therapists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine
And
like
do yoga.
and do
Go to the
yoga.
gym.
That's like the balance.
You have to you know, and doing this work, try to find some type of balance like with your wellness. And I think after, you know, just anyone who experiences incarceration, or if you're supporting a family member that's going through incarceration, it takes a lot. It takes a toll on the person and your body. So definitely, I think finding the balance and seeking wellness has definitely been a journey that a lot of us that have this experience are trying to embark on.
Damn. And I think I might be wrong here, but I think I recently read that I think California they're gonna pass, or they want to pass a law that's gonna get rid of the like what is it called, bail, I think, or something like that.
Cash bail, yeah. But so what they're doing with that is like, but how they're going about it is like they're gonna have like these really like racist risk assessments to say like who's eligible and who isn't. So like the whole, you know, there's still things with that, and even as we move to like decarcerate, we're moving to like e-carceration, and like that's like fines that get also like transferred to the person. So it's like
So like for people who don't know what bail is, or and you drive around, you see a bunch of bail bonds, and you're getting closer to like,
yes,
the metro station in downtown.
so it's basically like if what's keeping you inside jail is the fact that you're poor. Because if you were able to bail out, like you would bail out, but it's your lack of access to capital, to generational wealth, because you know haven't had access to, because you know this is white supremacist nation. But so if you don't have any of that, like you're gonna stay in there. But if you have access to money, and if you have access to all that, like you're not going to stay in there. So this isn't like about making communities safe. This is about like you being poor and not have access to resources to get your ass out of there. So this isn't, you know, so the assessments that they're going to, that are being generated around that, and are to see like who's eligible for that, are like pretty problematic. So
It's already messed up because I bailed out.
Yeah.
My dad got me out. And then, like, when I went to my prelim, they're like, $1,000,004. They try to add all these crazy charges, like the gang affiliation one. And that bumped me up to $1 million, and then they put me in solitary, right? So now they're like, oh, now we know you can't pay that, you know? And I was like, what? I was like, well, I didn't know I could pay the first one, right? Because my dad just came out of nowhere. He's like, oh, you know?
Oh man.
my bail was no bail.
That's
So no bail means you
Yeah.
can't get out because there's no.
yeah.
There's no bail. And so then they're like, no, take your ass
There's a
back
high
to your
risk
cell.
right there.
Yeah.
Flight risk right there.
So
And now, usually, from my understanding too, is like the process. Once you're inside, you're at some point you're gonna be scheduled to see a judge, right? To kind of like.
unless you get but don't get arrested on the weekend, because then you're gonna be in the county for like a while and you have to
Oh,
wait to
man.
see a judge. So try to do your shit. Try to get arrested between like Monday through Thursday. Recommend avoid holidays.
There you go, people. You'll come out maybe the next day.
I'm just
Ah,
kidding.
man.
Just
Damn,
kidding.
that is crazy. I mean, one of my fears is like, oh man, I'm gonna get pulled over, and so this one time I happened to be driving with a suspended registration, but it was in my lack of attention here. It was the courts. But point is, I got pulled over, and the cop was like, hey, oh no, sorry, suspended license. Like, hey, your license is suspended. I can take your car right now and take you to jail. And I'm in my head, I'm like, no, please, like, fuck. And then he let me slide. He was cool. He's like, you better stop here, call somebody so they can pick up your car and drive you home. And I was like, all right, man, I'm out, And honestly, for like maybe a month, I was after I finished fixing my license stuff, I was so paranoid of just getting pulled over, and then just just booking me and taking me. I don't know how long I was gonna stay there for, but just the idea of prison is like, it's
That's like
supposed to defer you from doing
yeah.
bad shit.
That's like PTSD,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
like
that's
that
every
was
day.
that's just
Oh,
just
fuck.
that interaction like has you feeling like that. And
Yeah.
for a lot of folks, it's like even if like you're constantly like looking over your shoulder, and have like those worries, even if like you haven't done anything, it's like, oh shit, the cops are
Yeah.
it's because
I drive like a little old lady. I'm a two-striker. I don't party. I don't do
Yeah.
anything.
Damn. So one
Like,
more and you're
One more and I'm done.
fuck.
So like, and that's the that was the deal.
Yeah.
that was not a deal.
That was not a deal,
The
but
deal to who? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, it just, you can think about it in a bunch of other systems that are in place in our society, and you can see how they're, a lot of them are set up to kind of just try to keep you down, and like, once they label you as a convict or a prisoner, like, that's what they want you to, with the illusion that, oh, you're going to be reformed and all this stuff. It's still like an illusion, the very fact that, you can live a normal life after that,
Yeah, they even say like whatever trauma you went with initially, like prison incarceration, whatever, it's gonna just like exacerbate that times like 1,000 when you come home. It's gonna make it like whatever worse. And that like compounded with the fact that you don't have access to housing, that you're locked out of like jobs or like locked into certain jobs, and can be like very
Fuck. And now, like, now being out of it and, having the time to kind of, like, recollect
What
yourself.
you mean out of it? I'm just
Oh.
kidding. We're still going through it. We in the struggle. No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck.
I
Well-
was trying to get an apartment and I couldn't get an apartment because of my background.
So yeah, these are constant things like this.
Yeah.
It that follows you everywhere
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
I didn't even know that until I was trying to get an apartment.
Yeah.
And sometimes it may not even be, it's like, we've heard situations of students that have gotten accepted into like colleges, and like their parole or officer wants to kind of like take that opportunity from them, So it comes at you from like different levels and on different layers, and like Maria was saying, housing.
Housing. When I was about to parole, my boss, correctional officer, she kept telling me, she's like, you ain't gonna be shit. You're just gonna come back. You drug addict. And I was like, what? I haven't done drugs since the day I got arrested.
Yeah.
Like I've been sober. And she's like, yeah, you're nothing. You're nothing. You're not gonna be anything. And that's what they fucking grill you. All the cops, like, they just put you down every day.
You're their little
Fine.
retirement plan. Like,
Yeah.
you'll be back. I'm about, I've heard stories like, come back. I'm gonna buy a boat.
Yeah.
And all the overtime I'm doing here.
What I think is really crazy is the very fact that they allow, like, private prisons. Like, those.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. Like Geo Group and stuff like that.
Yeah, like,
Oh gosh,
they're monetizing the very fact that the people are in jail.
I mean, even like our prison system does that through Cal PIA, right? And Geo Group does it as well, trying to capitalize and exploit, cage people.
Yeah, I think recently there was a whole thing going on. If it loads right now, I want to say it was in Mississippi. I think for the last couple of years, people have going in there and saying how bad the conditions are. But I think there was a report that just came out. How do you see?
Yeah, and I think to like close it down, and it's like after how many people have died, your report concludes that like it's toxic. It's like the bodies weren't enough,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh man, I think it's a lot of people don't have this information, and it's very
Yeah.
unfortunate, in the case that you find yourself in those situations, you don't know what to do, you know.
Right. And not even then, but like, a lot of folks don't even understand, like, just because of the way that you look sometimes, like, you're already marked criminal,
Yeah.
and already when you go into the system, like, what your experience may look like is going to be different. Like, we see that what happened with like marijuana,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Oh
like
yeah.
and those convictions and the quote unquote like war on drugs poverty
Yeah.
that has happened where we have over incarcerated so many people and
A lot.
overcharge
Yeah.
folks, and it continues to be something that it's very easy to look at and say, well, you should have made better choices,
Mhm.
but like to look at these things like on with a broader lens.
Yeah, I mean, especially that you brought up the marijuana convictions. It's like at least now, at least in California, using that as an example since it's been legalized. Um, what was I going with this? Oh, the fact that a lot of people, especially people who have the income and the wealth to pursue those like companies or make those companies based around marijuana products, they can do it now and make hundreds and thousands of dollars off of it, while just like 4 or 5 years ago,
People are still in prison because of
exactly,
marijuana
and
convictions,
they don't
like
want to do it
still.
any like retroactive.
Yeah, and
like,
then even the people that do have like the legit like quote unquote like weed businesses are like not people that have been directly impacted by the criminalization of marijuana. So that process has
Yeah.
like not even been equitable either. Because how do you have the capital to go about that,
Yeah.
right? When you've been locked out of like all, yeah, because of your background.
Yeah, where I currently work, there's a lot of I work in like in near Griffith Park, so the majority of the population around there is white, Caucasian, and but a lot of them come in and they're like, hey, print me out some stuff for like my CBD company, labels, blah blah blah, and like you see them monetizing something that people of my color have been what's it called, convicted for, or like held up at fucking random stops, harassed and everything over it, and it's like, now you can come in and you can kind of just make money off of it and pretend nothing ever happened to anybody else who was doing
Yeah.
these things, and yeah, I don't know, it's just always been like a weird thing for me. Like this is the first time I actually had the chance to talk to somebody like who went through that experience, and just hearing this information just helps me. I mean, helps me. It makes me feel, I don't know, I feel a little angry, just the
Yeah,
very
it's
fact.
like if you like, what do they say? Like if you're not mad, you're not paying attention. That's
Yeah.
like, I stay looking mad. Yeah, all my pictures.
She's always
I got my
mad.
pictures.
That's just my go-to look. Yeah.
Being mugging.
Yeah, mean muggy. So with Revolutionary Scholars, now, you guys are still going through it. As you're going through, you continue to get educated and learn more information, and then take that information and give it to others, right? So now, like, have you, like, with the people you've worked with along within there, like, students or volunteers or whatever it is, what's their reception of the program been? If that makes any sense, like, how have they taken in this support or help or programs? Does that make any sense?
So I'll give you like an example,
Yeah.
and this is something that happened last week. So one of the things that we do is like we correspond with folks inside. And there was this one student in particular who has done over 25 years of his life. Like he's been incarcerated. We've looked at his transcripts. He's, has close to like a 4.0 GPA. He makes 18 cents an hour, but, in order for him to apply to like a couple of universities specifically, they were asking him for official transcripts. And we were like, he was concerned about like meeting the deadlines, and he's like, I'm gonna pull money out of my inmate account and I'm gonna like pay for the transcripts. Can you just help me like waive the like deadline fees? And I was like, nah, homie, we gonna waive the deadlines, we gonna waive the fees, we gonna figure something out, because there's no way that like you should be making what you make. So anyway, we worked with him throughout the whole entire application process, and worked with reached out to different community colleges, were able to like waive transcript fees and all that. So he reached out to us, and he, understanding the like dynamics of like, he makes 18 cents an hour. So he wrote back to us, and he wrote us like a really beautiful like thank you letter for helping him with his application process. But then aside from that, he included a book of snaps. And he was like, this is just like, I can't do more. Like, I wish I could do more to support you guys. But like, here is like, this is all I have to give you is like this book of stamps because I make 18 cents an hour. And I want to give it to you so like you can write to other people like me and help them in the ways that you've helped me. And so that to me, like, I read the letter and like I just started like bawling, and I'm not like a chillona like that. And I was like, so like those are the ways like in the ways that the space is like meaningful to folks, and those are ways that like don't not like represent themselves in tangible ways. Like this is all like behind the scenes labor, that like these experiences are meaningful to people, and like for us too, like because we understand like what it's like to be confined and what it's like, you know, to not have access and to be in those conditions, and
to give us stamps.
it's like you've
He
given
was
us
like,
money.
Yeah, that's money in prison right to them stamps. I was like, huh. I was like, okay, we're gonna frame those stamps. I'm like,
So,
we're not
yeah.
using them.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, there was a last year, well, just like a month ago, 2 months ago. So there was a report that Mike Bloomberg, he's one of the presidential candidates running for the Democratic Party. Apparently, he didn't know that he had people, like inmates, making like calls to people like, "Hey, donate to Mike Bloomberg's stuff," you know. And then he apparently didn't know either that was going on. So, but you know, it was a big thing that they were exploiting the prisoners in there for the sake of trying to make money for this billionaire's presidential campaign.
right.
So he comes out and he's like, "It wasn't me. I didn't know what was going on. It was a third party." It's like, come on, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
And that continues in other ways, right? Through like the state of California, like exploit like the labor of people that are incarcerated, and you know, we know that the prison system is an extension of slavery, which is what, like labor, right?
yeah, it's like legal.
Yeah, and then we have like the convict leasing system and things like that. So it's very much designed with that intention. And they also have like Cal PIA inside the system, which likes to push themselves as something like, oh, we're here to help people that are incarcerated, because instead of paying you 18 cents an hour, we're going to pay you like 36. And so then what they go ahead and do, it's like California policy for departments in the state to purchase from them. And of course, their bids are going to come in the lowest because they're using inmate labor. And this is like the DMV, right? CSUN themselves, like the dorm furniture and a lot of like the state furniture is produced by people that are currently incarcerated. So like it's okay, right? As long as it's there to like benefit the state. But we are definitely seen as a exploitative labor force, and that continues. And so that one of the things that we want to do with Revolutionary Scholars, but we are completely like at capacity, is you know, get the university to divest, right, from expanding business, from not only expanding business with Cal PIA, but like discontinuing any existing business that they have. And that's the thing, like people don't really understand like how
And not try to use it as a stage room.
Yeah.
so this is the thing too, right? So they came and they met with us and they told us about all this, and they tried to present it to us like in a really like nice way. Like, we're here to expand business with CSUN, and they came to our office, and like, you know, we don't have like the best furniture in there and stuff, and so they offered to fully furnish our entire office, to use it as like a showroom for like the rest of the campus, to like say how good and durable like their products were, with like the carrot like of you'll have like all this new shit, and we're like, all this new shit that was built by people with like us in prison that you want us to fucking capitalize off of you, like we'll sit on the floor. And we all said no, and we've all been very explicit as to like not partner with the Geo Group. Geo Group also reached out to Revolutionary Scholars because they're doing like reentry work to want to partner with us. Y los mandamos por un tubo, I mean, in a letter with letterhead. But we do. So that's like understanding you know, the broader scope of these things.
Now, I don't know if you know like the big, I don't personally know, but like the differences between like a prison run by the federal government compared to like a private company. Is there like a big difference in regards to how things are processed or people are maintained in there?
Well, I don't know, but the rumor was that they had a pool.
In the feds?
Yeah, the feds.
In the feds?
Yeah.
I also heard that I don't have Fed experience, but that you do have to do like more of your time in the feds. But I heard that it was more
like more chill. That's what I
more
kept
Camp
hearing.
Snoopy.
Yeah.
More
Like,
Camp Snoopy.
Yeah.
More Camp Snoopy. I don't know. But that wasn't my experience, so I can't speak to it. So I should probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I managed to pull up the article here in regards to the the Mississippi. So Lake Mississippi prison photos of skimpy
Yeah.
meals, moldy showers, and exposed wiring.
And that's the other thing, right? Like the environmental conditions of prisons that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Like not only is it like the geographic separation that you experience through incarceration because of where the sites are located,
Mm-hmm.
but also like where they're built, like are in toxic areas. And because you're there, even like the water, when I was at Valley State Prison, like there was valley fever that was going out and people were dying in the prisons.
Damn.
And it's like you're in there. It's not like you can just like pack up and leave, right?
Yeah.
Because you are literally confined. So if that's the conditions that, and it was overpopulated, like people were sleeping like in gyms and things like that. But yeah, the environmental conditions of prison are like a whole other.
The sweatshops. I used
Yeah.
to work in a sweatshop, Chinese sweatshop for
Employment
PIA
working.
for 35 cents.
Yeah.
8 hours a day sewing away.
Fuck,
Sewing.
like with the
Jumpsuits.
regu-
Yeah, with the
Oh
sewing
my
machines.
God. Yeah.
I caught my finger once in the needle.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was
And
just
do you
like,
get workers' comp?
Nope.
Oh, put a band-aid on.
Drink some water.
Drink
Yeah.
some water.
It'd be cold. You'd be freezing.
Man, this is some
Yeah.
crazy stuff. And again, it's just people don't bother like reading into this for me. They say as long as it's not me, as long as it's not part of me,
Yeah.
I'm in the system. Then
It's- And then it's like, oh, they did the crime. They should do the time type
Mhm.
of mentality. And, that's how I was at first.
Yeah.
Until I was
until,
in there.
until I was in there. But, like, I don't think people deserve, unless they're fucking crazy. Because
Yeah.
there's some people that are crazy and, they need to stay there.
oh yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that we should burn prisons and everybody should come home. I think we should abolish them.
I don't know. There's just some people.
Yeah, like comparing just jail systems, like we mentioned earlier, like the US has like the highest rate of imprisonment in the world,
Yeah.
and like places like Sweden, at least from my understanding as well, is that
I saw that.
the way they present the idea, not present, but like their idea of prison is completely different.
Right.
It's like in the sense the opposite, because they try to
Yeah, and it's
go
like
for it.
not even like when I first got to prison, I saw somebody that had like the CDCR uniform, and I was like in receiving, and they had the R and it was crossed out, and I was like, what does that mean? And then because that was when I had initially or first gone from like CDC to CDCR from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, but it's like there is no rehabilitative services that are available, especially to like the large prison population. If there is, it's usually like to a very small
Usually to the men.
portion
Yeah.
of the
Men
population.
the men get all the first dibs on everything, and then the women.
Yeah.
If the men fuck up, then we don't get it.
And
'Cause-
you know they fuck up. I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
and they had
Goddamn, man.
was it not Pelican Bay? It was another. I don't know if it was. What's the other one? It's not Folsom. Well, I don't know which prison it was, but they had a computer programming program for the men, and they were gonna implement it on the women for the women prison. And I was all excited, right? I was like, I'm gonna know what to do when I get out, whatever, right? So someone hacks into it and they fucked it up for everyone else.
What did they hack? What did
They changed their dates.
Oh, the release date.
Yeah, the release
I
dates.
mean,
Oh
you know,
my God.
that was the
I wouldn't
rumor,
blame him.
yeah,
I
like,
wouldn't
but-
blame him.
Wouldn't blame him.
I wouldn't blame him. Free yourself.
And I was like, oh man. So they messed it up, and then
Yeah.
we got screwed.
God damn it. So I mean, the point after the release, you're supposed to like rehabilitate. What's the word? Rehabilitation. Is that rehabilitation? There you go.
Rehabilitation.
What does that consist of? Like, what is that in their meaning? Like,
There is none.
There's
They
none.
just made the
Wow.
name longer. That I
There's
don't
none.
know.
Everything is just like any self-help groups or anything that goes in there
Mhm.
is like church-related, church-based. Like they like try to
Oh, man.
whip religion onto you.
So hard. I remember like in county, they would come in, right, and like the chaplains would come in, and then like we had these little electronic doors that would like slide,
Uh-huh.
and so then some of the staff would like crack the door open so like you could listen to the chaplain, and I used to be like, close my door.
Close.
like-
I don't want to hear this.
Close my
Jesus.
door. I'm in
Yeah.
jail. I ain't got a job. I gotta be up early to listen to no sermon. But it's very like indoctrinating.
Yeah, I mean, I would bet it's like church. Yeah, I mean, it's religion. It's
And
that in
that's-
itself.
Yeah, but it's also like a lot of the programming was available through like some of the chaplains, right?
Yeah, that's majority. That was in the prison, it was like religious based.
Mhm.
I didn't feel like, and then if you already had your GED or your high school diploma, you were just stuck in some random job,
Mhm.
and I didn't know how that was gonna benefit you. Like, what was I gonna do? Be sewing fucking dresses or something? Like, I wasn't even good at it. What was I gonna do with that?
However, her knitting skills have become
Oh,
handy. We have a conference coming up at
Mhm.
CSUN with the Department of Social Work, and Maria is actually knitting something. She learned knitting inside.
yeah.
Yeah.
I learned how to crochet with the hooks and crooks. Hooks.
I've only seen it done by like my grandma. It's like Miko.
Yeah,
Right,
it was very
that's-
therapeutic.
I bet. Well, we're about that time, guys. If if people want to get more information in regards to revolutionary scholars, or maybe reach out to one of you guys if you have any questions or just need like some sort of guidance, what's the best way to go about that?
Slide in our DMs on Revolutionary Scholars. Slide in our DMs, yes. Slide in our DMs, and I think our email address is. Oh, our GoFundMe link is on there because we are fundraising to take our students, to take all Revolutionary Scholar students to Columbia.
Oh,
But
damn, nice.
yeah, we're going to Columbia University March 4th through
The 8th.
8th.
Oh, okay. That's what you mentioned
Yeah.
before. Okay.
So that's a way for folks to get a hold of us. And then our email address is
Revolutionary Scholars at CSUN. Wait, Revolutionary Scholars Project at CSUN. .edu.
There you go,
Yeah.
people. Well, again, thank you so much for coming out. It was a informative conversation, at least for me, and I'm sure whoever listens to this is gonna feel as angry as it made everybody here. But thank you guys again for coming out, and we'll
Thank
see.
you.
We'll
Thank
talk
you
to you
for
very
having
soon.
us.
Okay. All right. Peace, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.